Everything changed in a matter of seconds. I mean, literally just seconds. Welcome to this explainer on NFL Nexus. Listen, if you want to understand the true anatomy of the National Football League, if you want to pull back the curtain and see the relentless pressure, the deeply human element, and the intricate, razor-thin margins that completely make or break a franchise, you are in exactly the right place. Make sure you hit subscribe to the channel right now, like this explainer, and comment down below with your thoughts as we go. And if you truly want to take your football knowledge to the absolute next level and get behind-the-scenes access, support the channel by becoming a channel member. We would love to have you. Okay, let's dive into this. Because today, we are looking at a franchise that is currently standing on the very edge of a jagged, crumbling cliff. The Indianapolis Colts are trapped in a pressure cooker. And the craziest part? It's a pressure cooker entirely of their own making. The 2026 season, it isn't just another year on the calendar for these guys. It's not just another set of 17 games. It is a crucible. It is the absolute, unquestionable make-or-break moment for an entire regime. I'm talking about the front office, the coaching staff, the 53 men on the roster. Every single person in that building is on the clock. And let me tell you, the ticking of that clock is getting deafeningly loud.
8-2. I really want you to just sit and think about that record for a moment. 8 wins, 2 losses. In the modern NFL, getting to 8-2 means you are practically a made man. You are the talk of the town. You're printing playoff tickets. And then a total, devastating, absolutely inexplicable collapse. From 8-2 all the way to 8-9. Everything changed in a matter of weeks. The air wasn't just let out of the balloon, it was completely, violently sucked out of the entire building. The promise they built, the swagger they walked around with, that ironclad belief that this team was destined for a deep, undeniable playoff run, it all just evaporated into thin air. A collapse of this magnitude doesn't just end a season, guys. It leaves a deep, psychological scar on the DNA of a franchise. Imagine the deafening silence in that locker room after Week 17. Try to picture the heavy, suffocating weight of those expectations literally crumbling around them. Grown men, world-class athletes just staring blankly into empty lockers, slowly untying their cleats, trying to process how a guaranteed division title and a massive playoff home game slipped right through their fingers. It forces a complete, painful reevaluation of every single man in that room. The horrific duality of their 2025 campaign is almost hard to comprehend. It's like looking at two completely different football teams wearing the same helmets. Let's look at weeks 1 through 8. Head coach Shane Steichen was an absolute offensive mastermind. He was orchestrating an attack that was as dangerous, as dynamic, as any unit in the entire league. They were executing with absolute ruthless precision. They were dictating the pace of the game. They were, in a word, dominant. But then, the Week 11 bye arrived, and whatever offensive magic, whatever secret sauce they had brewing, it completely vanished. From Week 9 all the way to Week 17, they embarked on a disastrous, soul-crushing 7-game losing streak. They fell off a proverbial cliff. It was a swoon so severe, so shocking, that it satisfied absolutely nobody, resulting in an 8-9 record for the second consecutive year. And you know what the most agonizing part of all this is? It condemned the Indianapolis Colts to a 5th straight year of watching the postseason from the exact same place you are right now, the couch. Only their couch costs a whole lot more in dead cap space. 5 long, excruciating years of sitting at home in January while their most bitter rival teams chase a Lombardi trophy. $88 million. Let that massive number just hang in the air for a second. $88 million. That is the colossal 2-year financial gamble the Indianapolis Colts have placed squarely on the shoulders of quarterback Daniel Jones. You see, ever since the shock out-of-nowhere retirement of Andrew Luck way back on August 24, 2019, this franchise has been wandering aimlessly through a desolate, unforgiving quarterback wilderness. They have been desperately searching for water in the desert. They signed Jones to a 1-year, $14 million deal prior to 2025, praying, absolutely hoping against hope that he could be the savior they so desperately needed, after he failed to pan out under the blinding, unforgiving lights with the New York Giants. Now, with $44 million of that $88 million fully, completely guaranteed, they are pushing all their chips to the absolute center of the table. There is no turning back. They are tying their entire organizational future, and likely their jobs, directly to his right arm. So, the absolutely crucial point we have to figure out here is which Daniel Jones are they actually paying for? Because in weeks 1 through 8, Jones was a complete revelation. He looked like the guy. He completed 173 of his 243 passes. That is over 2,000 yards passing in half a season, 13 touchdowns against just 3 interceptions, and a stellar passer rating of 109.5. He was the confident, poised maestro of Steichen's attack, systematically ripping opposing defenses apart week in and week out. But fast forward to weeks 9 through 13. The split statistics are frankly chilling. Even before the catastrophic, season-ending torn Achilles tendon he suffered in Week 13, the wheels were rapidly, violently coming off the wagon. Just 83 completions on 134 attempts, a meager 979 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 picks, and a passer rating plummeting down to 86.6. His mechanics completely faltered, the processing and reads slowed down dramatically. The drop-off wasn't just a minor slump, it was a deeply, fundamentally disconcerting regression. The crazy part is, the quarterback himself knows exactly the ghost that is haunting this team. Picture the scene for a second. A somber, quiet press conference room deep within the bowels of Lucas Oil Stadium. The harsh fluorescent lights reflecting off a visibly exhausted, beaten-down Daniel Jones. He stares down at the podium, the ghost of a collapsed season haunting his every single word as he speaks into the microphones. I think we did some good things early in the season, and were able to get into a rhythm there for a little bit, but we didn't do enough ultimately to finish it. He specifically pointed to the agonizing, fatal flaws that cost them dearly against heavyweights like Houston and Kansas City. He openly acknowledged the situations at the very end of those tight games where they simply failed to execute in the clutch. The offense was humming along, and then it just violently stopped. If they want to even survive 2026, let alone contend, they have to figure out exactly why the lights went out in those highly critical moments. But listen, the existential dread of this offseason isn't just confined to the offensive side of the ball. Let's shift our focus to the defensive trenches for a minute. Because in today's modern NFL, if you only have one big-time pass rusher, you might as well have zero. I'm totally serious. If that premier superstar player goes down with an injury or simply needs a breather on the sideline for one single play, your entire defensive structure is at risk of completely collapsing. The 49ers learned it with Nick Bosa. The Lions learned it with Aiden Hutchinson. You absolutely cannot survive without elite depth. And the Colts, well, they are completely terrified of learning this exact painful lesson with their very own lone alpha. The statistical drop-off paints a truly terrifying picture for Indianapolis. Last season, 2024, 15th overall pick Laiatu Latu was essentially a one-man wrecking crew. He was an army of one. He racked up 11 sacks and an unbelievable, jaw-dropping 61 total pressures. To put that in perspective, nobody else on the entire Colts defense had more than 4 sacks or 38 disruptions. He was a singular, unblockable force of nature. When Latu was on the field, creating absolute havoc in the backfield, the Colts enjoyed a dominant 43% defensive pressure rate. Opposing quarterbacks were literally running for their lives on almost half of their dropbacks. But the exact second he stepped off the field, the very moment he jogged to the sideline for a simple drink of water, that pressure rate completely cratered to a measly 29.4%. The defense went from absolutely terrifying to completely toothless in the blink of an eye. And guys, this isn't just about cold, abstract analytics or nerd numbers. This is a ticking, explosive clock for the entire secondary. With Latu actively hunting the quarterback, the opponent passing expected points added, or EPA, allowed by the defense was a very manageable 0.07. But without him out there, it skyrocketed to 0.13. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that statistical jump is basically the exact difference between facing a completely average, run-of-the-mill, middle-of-the-pack quarterback and facing a game-wrecking MVP-caliber superstar. Why does this matter to you watching at home? Because that fractional shift in EPA is the literal real-world difference between forcing a crucial third-down punt and giving up a back-breaking, game-losing 70-yard touchdown bomb. Latu's mere presence on the grass is quite literally what keeps the Colts defense from bleeding out on the field. Knowing full well they were walking a high-wire tightrope without a safety net, General Manager Chris Ballard initiated a massive, sweeping wave of defensive churn this offseason. They let Kwity Paye walk to Las Vegas. Veteran Samson Abraham departed. In their place comes a desperate, urgent wave of reinforcements meant to prevent a fatal collapse whenever Latu needs to rest. They brought in Arden Key in free agency, a solid veteran who posted 5 sacks and 33 pressures for the Titans last year. They added Michael Clemens to the mix. And in the draft, they grabbed Florida's George Gooms Jr. in the 5th round. Now this kid is fascinating. His combine spider chart was absolute pure insanity. We're talking a nearly 40-inch vertical jump and an absurd 80-inch wingspan. Those are numbers that belong on an NBA basketball court, not a football field. They also drafted Ohio State's Caden Curry in the 6th round. And then there's second-year defensive end, Jalen Tumaloa. He didn't log a single sack as a rookie, which sounds bad, but his 12.1% pressure rate, which was second best on the entire team, suggests there was an untapped, highly explosive potential bubbling just beneath the surface, waiting to erupt. But the million-dollar question is, Are these reinforcements actually enough to save this defense? Listen to what defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo had to say. He praises Tuimoloau's massive offseason gains in the weight room. He praises Arden Key's veteran savvy and situational awareness on the edge. He rightly notes that very, very few guys in the modern hyper-athletic NFL can realistically play 80 to 90% of the defensive snaps without completely wearing down by November. But then he ends his entire assessment with two incredibly chilling words. We'll see. That uncertainty, coming directly from the man tasked with designing the entire scheme, is absolutely deafening. We'll see, because he knows the stakes. If this delicate, pieced-together rotation fails, if they cannot manufacture real, terrifying heat opposite of Law 2, opposing quarterbacks are going to have all day to sit in the pocket and throw. The secondary will be systematically, ruthlessly shredded, and the entire season will be ruined before it even begins.
Which brings us away from the theoretical whiteboards and directly onto the grass. Welcome to the OTA battleground. Voluntary organized team activities kicked off on a Tuesday, running all the way through June 4th before mandatory minicamp officially begins. But make absolutely no mistake about it, there is nothing voluntary about the raw, visceral intensity out on this practice field. Picture it, the sweltering, unforgiving Indiana heat radiating off the synthetic practice turf. Rookies are visibly exhausted, hands resting heavy on their knees, gasping for air, rapidly realizing that their glory days playing on Saturdays in college are a very distant memory. With free agency and the draft in the rearview mirror, this is the very first time the 2026 rookies are sharing the turf with the seasoned, battle-tested veterans. This is not a routine walk-through practice. This is an intense, vicious, bare-knuckle fight for survival where absolutely nobody's job is safe.
And nowhere is that palpable, thick tension more obvious than inside the quarterback room. With Daniel Jones firmly sidelined, rehabbing and recovering from his devastating Achilles tear until training camp at the absolute earliest, the precious, highly coveted practice reps are being fiercely split between Riley Leonard and Anthony Richardson Sr. Think about this for a second. Last year, Richardson was battling Daniel Jones for the QB1 spot. He was viewed by many as a potential long-term franchise cornerstone, the guy who was going to lead them to the promised land. Now, oh, how the mighty have fallen. Richardson is out there fiercely fighting in the June heat just to secure the backup role, desperately trying to right his past mechanical wrongs and fix his footwork. In the brutal, unforgiving ecosystem of the NFL, the fall from grace is violently swift. Your entire career trajectory, your livelihood, your dreams can vanish in the span of 12 short months. On the other side of the ball, you have Riley Leonard, hungry, aggressive, and trying to solidify himself as the definitive, undeniable future of the Colts' quarterbacking plans. Two incredibly talented young men, one single lifeline. But it's not just the quarterbacks. These positional wars are breaking out at every single positional group across the entire 53-man roster. Take wide receiver Josh Downs, for example. Longtime top target and reliable safety blanket Michael Pittman Jr. is gone, shipped off to Pittsburgh. Downs, who saw his overall production take a noticeable dip last year due to the emergence of Alec Pierce and rookie tight end Tyler Warren, is now fully, completely unleashed. He is fighting tooth and nail, rep by rep, for those prime WR1 targets and highly coveted outside receiver snaps. Then you have the trenches, the battle of the Jalens. Second-year tackle Jalen Travis, who actually looked really promising in 4 starts of relief for Braden Smith down the stretch last year, now has to violently fend off hungry 4th-round pick Jalen Farmer. And you might be asking, why does a right tackle battle in the sweltering June heat matter to you watching at home? I'll tell you why. Because if the winner of this specific battle fails to hold his block against elite edge rushers in September, Daniel Jones gets hit, and that $88 million gamble goes up in absolute smoke. And over on defense, the Colts dealt their longtime defensive locker room leader, linebacker Zaire Franklin, but managed to get defensive tackle Colby Wooden in return. Entering the final prove-it year of his rookie deal, Wooden must step up immediately and provide desperate, needed depth behind DeForest Buckner, who is still trying to return to form after a truly terrifying neck injury late in 2025. Every single snap out there is a brutal, unforgiving competition. And to add fuel to the fire, the front office is injecting a massive wave of rookie talent directly into this chaotic environment. Georgia's C.J. Allen, taken 53rd overall, is essentially guaranteed to wear the defensive green dot as a rookie. He is taking on the massive, brain-bending burden of communicating and calling the entire defense at the professional level. LSU's A.J. Halsey is physically, aggressively battling Hunter Wolfer and Wanye Thomas for the starting strong safety spot. Even the undrafted guys are heavily weaponized in this camp. Linebacker Wes Weeks was handed a massive $286,500 in guaranteed money, literally the most of any Colts undrafted free agent, to fight for a roster spot based on his violent, high-impact special teams upside.
That's alongside safety Austin Brown, who took home over $272,000 guaranteed. The front office is quite literally paying an absolute premium for immediate day one impact. And in the backfield, with Zach Moss long gone to greener pastures and Amir Abdullah acting as a mere stopgap last year, the Colts are banking heavily, and I mean heavily, on a day 3 tandem of DJ Giddens and 7th-rounder Seth McGaughan. They need these rookies to finally provide reliable hard-nosed depth behind their absolute bell cow, Jonathan Taylor.
But listen, to truly fundamentally understand the immense pressure of the 2026 Indianapolis Colts, we have to elevate the scale of this explainer. We have to move away from the sweat and the intense turf of the practice field and step directly into the quiet, air-conditioned mahogany offices of the front office. Because this isn't just a 53-man roster fighting for its collective life. Make no mistake, this is a full-blown executive crisis.
General Manager Chris Ballard has been the man at the helm since 2017. He built this. And after that catastrophic late-season collapse, he had what he described as 3 or 4 incredibly long, emotionally draining, hours-deep meetings with owner and CEO Carly Gordon right prior to the Houston game. And in the midst of that brutal, agonizing self-scouting session, Gordon looked at her GM, looked him right in the eye, and asked a question that cuts straight to the absolute bone. Do you still have your juju or shimmer to do this? Imagine being a fly on the wall in that mahogany office. This isn't some corporate conversation shouted across a noisy boardroom. It's a quiet, piercing, intimate question between an owner and the architect of her franchise. It's not a conversation about salary cap space or draft capital or dead money. It is a deeply human, incredibly raw emotional admission. It scales the stakes of this season to an absolute existential level. The owner is looking directly into the eyes of her general manager, the guy she trusted for years, and asking if the magic is simply, finally, gone. Ballard's response was desperate, yet incredibly defiant. I told her unequivocally, I have not lost my shimmer, juju, or confidence. He openly admitted that the bitter end of the 2025 season utterly gutted him to his core. He admitted that when things don't go right on the field, it ultimately starts with him in the front office. He made a vow, stating plainly to her, we've got to finish better, and I have to be better at my job. Because here's the thing, Ballard knows the harsh, terrifying reality of the landscape he is operating in. The AFC South is no longer a laughingstock. It is a brutal, unforgiving division. The Jacksonville Jaguars, armed with Trevor Lawrence's expansive, lethal offensive arsenal, and the Houston Texans, fielding C.J. Stroud's high-flying, absolute juggernaut of an offense, are waiting right there at the top. They are absolute titans, completely ready to capitalize on any further failure from Indianapolis. Any slight slippage in this delicate trajectory, and all of Ballard's deep emotional self-reflection becomes nothing more than meaningless end-of-season wool gathering.
Which leaves us, the fans, the analysts, everyone watching, staring at the ultimate, chilling unknown. If Daniel Jones can somehow miraculously recapture his early 2025 spark, if Lou Anarumo's defensive pass rush rotation can somehow, someway manufacture the intense heat they desperately need opposite of Leao Tulatu, and if this team can finally, permanently exorcise the deep psychological demons of their second-half swoon, maybe they can transcend it all. Maybe they can shock the world. But if they fail, if Daniel Jones's Achilles doesn't heal quite right, if the delicate defensive rotation completely fractures, if the rookies buckle and break under the immense, suffocating weight of this pressure, then the shimmer is truly permanently gone, and a total, devastating, ground-up rebuild is imminent. The clock is loudly ticking, and the story of the 2026 Indianapolis Colts is far, far from over. Thank you so much for diving into all these intricate details with us today on NFL Nexus. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a like on this explainer, and definitely comment down below on whether you think Chris Ballard has officially lost his juju. We want to hear from you. And hey, if you want more deep cinematic dives into the NFL just like this one, support the channel by becoming a member. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.